Okay, on this slide here, we're talking about nucleotides. And again, a nucleotide is a phosphate, sugar, and a base. And since we're talking about DNA here, the sugar is deoxyribose. Now, if we were talking about RNA, the R stands just for ribose. So the two different sugars, one's deoxyribose, and RNA is ribose. See, only main difference that and one base, but I won't confuse you with the RNA base right now. So I'll just leave it as the four bases again are adenine, guanine, thymine, cytosine. A bonds to T, G bonds to C. Okay, so it says here that the sugar phosphate backbone consists of a 5' to 3' phosphodiester linkages. Okay, 5' to 3'. What's it talking about there? It's talking about the bonding sites, is what this is. Okay, 5' is the position. If you're in chemistry, you'll learn about various bonding sites. And 5' is going to tell you, hey, the bond for this is over here, and 3' is over here. Okay, that's all that's saying. All right, so 5' to 3' is talking about bonding sites. Uh, they do stick out from the backbone, so they kind of give like a zigzaggy appeal to it. So here's your 5' here, 3' down here. So this oxygen over here is going to be bonding to this sugar. This oxygen over here is going to be bonding to this sugar. And so it would, here's your sugar, here's the phosphate. Here's the sugar, here's the phosphate. So it kind of goes zigzaggy in and out uh, down the molecule. It's not just sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, straight in a straight row going, down. They zigzag back and forth. And that's just because of where the bonding sites are. Okay. So over here again, for the comment, write what a nucleotide is, write what 5', 3' is, that it is a bonding site, and that they do bond to, that phosphates do bond to the sugars, right? So next slide here. This next slide is talking about the DNA as a double helix. Now, double helix, when they're in biology, when we're talking about something that is a helix, we are talking about it is coiled like a spring. All right. And a double helix means that there are two backbones, in this case, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, phosphate, sugar, that are spiraling from one point to another. All right, this spiral, what it does is a couple of things. One, it tightens up the molecule, almost like a rope. If you had single threads and then you were to pull on that rope, it's not twisted. If it's not twisted, it's going to just fray and break apart. Same thing with DNA is when it's not twisted, it's very easy to break it apart. That's how RNA gets in, is it untwists, unwinds that part that it needs to code for, opens it up. And it's a fairly easy process for RNA to open that up. When it's all coiled up, though, DNA is really hard to get to, and it doesn't mutate very well, which is a good thing because we really don't want our DNA mutating to begin with. That causes all kinds of havoc usually in our bodies. That's our DNA code is set in a certain manner to code for certain proteins for a reason. It works. And when you don't code properly because you've had DNA mutate, well, then you get something that doesn't work as well normally. Okay. So here it says X-ray diffraction data showed that DNA had formed a regular helix, making a complete turn of 34 A. A stands for angstroms, with a diameter of approximately 20 angstrom. Angstrom is an extremely small unit of measurement. At this point, don't worry too much about this being on the test. It's not going to be. How did they view DNA? They did view it by X-ray diffraction. So if I was to get, if I go here to, and I'm telling you, my internet for some reason is slower than slow this morning. I think it's tired. Okay, so let's see here. X-ray, not X-rats. X-ray diffraction, there it is. And I want to get a picture of it. Go to image. And this is good. All right. So right here, you can see a picture of DNA diffraction. And there it is right there. So you can see that X cross with patterns going out. The patterns going out is telling you the pitch. In other words, how fast the turns are going up. And the X is telling the viewer that that is a double helix, that there are two actual lines that are going in a spiral mechanism. If it wasn't, if it was straight up and down, all you would see is one set of dots. You would see like a dot here and a dot here if there was two, but they were not helicky. Or if there was only one going up, then you would only see one line at an angle. You wouldn't see both lines at different angles. Okay, back to here. And so that's about all I want you to put on that. The X-ray diffraction shows that there were two backbones in a helical pattern. That would be a good comment for this particular slide. That there was two backbones in a helical pattern. Okay, and when I say backbone again, I'm talking about the phosphate, sugar, the phosphate bonding. All right. I'm looking for, there we go. All right, so DNA structure. Again, DNA structure is the sugar phosphate backbone, and the phosphates are going to have negative charges, are neutralized by the positive charge proteins. So you've got proteins on the outside. Here's these proteins out here. So the phosphates themselves carry like a negative charge. To neutralize that charge so that the DNA molecule itself is basically overall neutral, you've got to have a positive charge that neutralizes the negative charge. And that's where the proteins come in. The proteins will bond to the phosphates out here. And what they do is neutralize the charge, but they also help coil this helix. So as they are coiling the helix, they're bonding and creating those turns in the DNA. Again, those turns help minimize mutations. They protect the DNA from mutation and damage. And so they're very important to have those proteins like histones on the outside. Now, the histones here are, like I said, they're on the outside. They are not on the inside of the DNA molecule whatsoever. They're on the outside, and they bond to the outside of the DNA molecule and kind of act as bungee hooks to keep this helical shape. All right. This little guy here, DNA structure. The bases do lie flat. So you would have adenine here, thymine here. You'd have guanine here, cytosine here, but they wouldn't be like this. If the molecule is going like this, they wouldn't be like this. They would be like this. So if I go over here to the model, you can see Watson and Crick here. This is Watson, James Watson. This is Francis Crick with their famous model that they built of DNA. If I zoom in on this, let me see if I can zoom in on this. Okay, each one of these going across here are the bases. The little stick things that are going up around in a swirl are the backbones, the sugar phosphate bonds, and the sugar bonding to the bases which go across. Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, I got those backwards. That's Crick, that's Watson. Huh. Um, yeah, nothing else on that one. All right, very good. Back to this, and we're into this cell here. All right, replication of DNA is semi-conservative. What that is trying to say is when you take a DNA molecule, you unwind it, and now you're going to split it apart so that you have one strand here, one strand here. It doesn't quite work that way, but for demonstration purposes, this will work. So you have parent strand, parent strand. A new daughter strand will line up here and start building up this one. And so this will become a new strand of DNA. Same thing over here. Complementary base pairing will build a new strand over here for a daughter strand over here. So this will be a new DNA strand. This will be a new DNA strand. It's semi-conservative because it still has one of the strands, you know, because every DNA has two strands. It will have one of its strands as the parent, but a new strand as the daughter. It does not go, all right, split apart, daughters go in, then the daughters basically make new stranded DNA, and then the parents go back together. That's not how it works. Okay, so replication of DNA is semi-conservative, meaning one parent strand is always in a new set of DNA. And this will be my last slide for this particular video. So DNA replication. What's going on here is DNA polymerase is breaking these bonds. Remember, you got triple bonds between G's and C's, double bonds between A's and T's, and it acts like a zipper. As the DNA polymerase goes up the DNA, it creates a bubble, and this bubble is where the parent strand, which is on the outside, allows new DNA strands to be formed on the inside. And when it gets all the way done, unzipping and creating new strands, you will have a completely new set of DNA strands here and here. It won't be completely new though, because the parent strand is still on the outside, new daughter strand on the inside. Okay, so you have new daughter strand here, parent strand here. So when you get this thing all unzipped and you've matched all the A's and T's and G's and C's and put in new sugar and phosphate bases, you will have two complete sets of DNA, but it's semi-conservative because the parent strand is still in each